thinking of leaving Midgar anytime soon, were you?
Well, seems this old friend of mine's in a tight spot. Long time ago I made a promise, so...
I'm really glad to have you back, Cloud. Really glad.
Final Fantasy VII Remake. Can't believe I'm saying those words, but yes, Final Fantasy VII Remake. And is a remake of the iconic 1997 PS1 hit Final Fantasy VII. For those who don't know, Final Fantasy VII, the original, is one of my favorite games of all time. It's my second favorite game of all time behind Metal Gear Solid. And to say I was excited about this game is quite an understatement. I have been counting down the days, even since it got delayed and everything, counting down the days for this to come out. And it's one of my most anticipated games of all time. Coming back to this from a person who's played the original, I didn't know what to expect. It was the first time I was nervous trying to play a game. Like the first time I sat down to play this, I actually felt quite nervous to start playing it because I didn't know exactly what they changed. I didn't know exactly what was going to be different from the original. And yeah, it was the first time I was actually nervous to play a video game. So this review is a little bit tricky to try put in perspective for new and returning players. So the way I've done this review is the first half is mainly going to focus on things that new players will most likely want to know. And then the second half, especially towards the end, me and the returning players need to have a little chat about this game. Just a little one. I'm not going to go into spoilers or deep into spoilers or anything like that, so don't worry about that. I need to talk about something, though, about this game, so I'm going to leave that towards the end, especially it's concerning veteran players or returning players from the original game. First off, I have to say the game looks amazing. It's got an amazing amount of detail, especially for people who have played the original, I guess. It's going to be quite a crazy thing jumping into this just to see the amount of detail, see how far we've come really from, 23 years or 22 years of the original being released, and just see the amount of detail in every single level in Final Fantasy VII. It looks amazing. The effects and the combat especially looks just like an absolute spectacle all the time. The game looks stunning. It's an amazing, amazing looking game, and it runs really, really well as well. The combat, yes, it's in real time, and for people who don't like to do it in real time, there is an option called Classic Mode that you can select where you can just select commands and the player characters move by themselves and they do blocking by themselves. But I think I tried Classic Mode for a bit, but the normal mode or the real-time mode just works for this kind of game. But yeah, the combat works. It's really easy to get into the swing of things and to really understand how everything works. It's just a mixture of using melee combat with spells and magic and using your abilities. The more your ATB bars fill up, which are basically your action bars that you can do special abilities with, the more they fill up, you can attack enemies and they fill up quicker. And the more they fill up, you can do special attacks on enemies. And it works. It's definitely in recent years the most fun I've had in a Final Fantasy game in terms of combat. It's not spectacular or amazing, but it just works really well with this game. The materia system and the weapons as well. You can equip different weapons and different materia, of course. And the way this works is the more you use the materia and the more you use that certain weapon, you'll actually gain unlockables for it. You'll gain perks for it. So you can just keep the same weapons or the same materia throughout the whole game, and they'll gradually level up as you use them more in the game. And once again, top marks. You probably already know about this because you probably heard it already, but the music in this game is one of the best things in this game. In fact, this may be my favorite soundtrack of all time. I originally loved the original Final Fantasy VII soundtrack. I thought that was my favorite soundtrack of all time. This, with its orchestra now added and just more modern take on the whole thing, it still sounds like the original songs, like in Final Fantasy VII. But man, do they add such a spectacle to the already spectacle battles you go through in this game. Some of the tracks have different versions in them, and they switch in between different versions as you're playing along, depending on what's happening on screen. So if you're walking along, the music track might go a little bit quiet. As soon as you enter a battle, it goes louder, and it just adds to this sense of specialness about the whole combat system. It really feels like a big, impactful journey you're going on, especially because of the music. The music is just flat out amazing. I would be very surprised if this didn't win Music of the Year. So a lot of questions were raised before the release of this, because this is part one, of course. This is the area called Midgar, where technically it takes about 6 or 7 hours in the original game, and then you're done with Midgar. So when the developers told everyone the idea that they were going to have Midgar as a separate game, it was also going to be onto Blu-ray discs, so it's going to be around about 100 gig of content as well. A lot of questions were raised with how this was going to work, especially with the original. Is it going to be linear? Is it going to be open world? A lot of questions of how this exactly works, especially with the main story. It's actually quite simple the way it works. Throughout the main objective or the main story, you'll eventually end up in different towns. And when you end up in different towns, there will be side objectives to do. The more side objectives you do away from the main story, the more opportunities you get for side missions and so on and so forth. You can get more extra money if you want to do it on the side. You can get new weapons, you can fight secret stuff. There's a lot of like different little things you can do. The side missions are not amazing or spectacular, but they're interesting enough for you to try and give at least a couple of them a go. Before anyone asks, no, you don't have to do the side missions. You can just completely just do the main storyline. That's completely up to you. Speaking of the main storyline, I'm happy to report they kept the goofiness of FF7 in this game. Even more goofiness than you ever thought there could be. The original FF7 had some weird moments. You obviously know about the Cloud dress scene and all that kind of stuff. They go full out on this in terms of goofiness. So if you're worried that it was just going to be a very serious Final Fantasy VII Remake, trust me on this. There are some majorly out there moments and goofy moments in FF7. So I'm really glad they kept what made some of the originals so memorable. But I have a complaint when it comes to building around the main story. So what I mean by this is the main story takes around about, I would say around 30 hours if you just did the main story. So they had to pad it out with things to do that are included in the main story that weren't exactly in the original FF7, if you catch my drift. And a lot of these things can go on for a bit too long, and it does feel like sometimes that they're just doing it to buy a little bit more time to make the campaign a bit more longer. There's a lot of backtracking. There's a lot of going and finding things like a key and then coming back to the original locations. A lot of that going on. And it can drag quite a bit, especially the second half of the game. There's a lot of instances where you're just walking around trying to find things, and then, oh no, the door is locked, so you have to go around the other side, and oh no, the door is locked. It can really get frustrating at times. It's just a warning that that's what they've included to make sure that the campaign is around about 30 hours. There's a lot of things though that do drag out a bit too long. So I really like FF7 Remake. I think in terms of just quality of a remake, this is probably the best remake I've ever played in terms of the amount of content and the amount of detail, especially. Like the detail will kind of blow you away of how much they put into this game, especially when you go into towns and stuff. There's a lot to love about this game, and for the most part, I really like FF7 Remake. It is exactly what I wanted in a Final Fantasy VII Remake. So I 100% recommend this for new players. 100%. This is an amazing experience, an amazing game. I'm not going to get into specific spoilers about anything, but I feel like reviewing this, I'd be doing a disservice for the people who originally played FF7 if I didn't talk about something that I'm going to talk about now. So this is a mild spoiler, so don't worry too much. I'm not going to give a load of detail about it, so bear with me on this. I finished this game feeling empty. Very empty inside. The reason for this is what they decided to do, yes, it's a remake. It's a Final Fantasy VII Remake, of course. A lot of the things in this game are rewrites from the original. There's a lot of things going on to do with referring to what happens in the original game. And a lot of things you really don't expect them to throw up. Example, they may show some things that happen very, very late in the original FF7 original game, but they refer to it here in part 1 of FF7 Remake. And the end of this game, and especially the ending, I didn't want to play the game anymore. I turned to my girlfriend and I said, I don't even feel like playing. I don't know what I'm playing anymore, because they really, really have rewritten this game. Especially going forwards, it's something to pay very much attention to. Now, they could be just throwing a bluff with a lot of things, but I really don't think they are. I think what's going on here is that they're trying to retell Final Fantasy VII in a different way. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'll let you decide. Personally, for me, if they are rewriting this and changing the way part 2 especially is going to work out when part 2, whenever that comes out, the problem I have with this is that it's not really because they are changing things around. That's fine. Rewrites happen. They rewrite things just to make it, move smoothly in the game. That's absolutely fine. They do this in this game 100%, and it actually works better than the original. But there's some things that just go a bit too far, and I feel like this is really going to upset the veteran players, the original fans of this game, because I feel like they're trying to dip a new story but put it in the FF7 universe rather than tag it on to a new Final Fantasy, like Final Fantasy 16. This feels like they've got people in, and now they're going to go on a ride that no one knows where it's going to go. Now, for some people, that may be good because everyone gets to have this new experience with these characters, like a brand new, fresh experience. For others, they may feel like they've been lied to. It says remake on the cover. Sometimes it may feel like it's a reboot, and that may make people feel a bit sad about that. I just felt really empty after finishing it. I had such an amazing time with this game. Like, the first 3-4 hours with this game was probably one of the best openings I played in a video game. Honestly, the first 2-3 hours of this game is phenomenal, and the rest of the game is brilliant, especially for a returning fan. But I'm worried about the future of this game. I was a little bit worried with them doing part 1, 2, and 3 and all, if they do 3 parts of this game. But now I'm even more worried about if this is a retelling, or if this is going to be exactly like the original, or if it's going to be completely different. I have no idea. I'm just confused, and I'm a bit at loss for what to say in terms of like a review, and especially a review score for this game, because right up until a certain moment, right up until near towards the end, I was going to give this game probably 9.5 out of 10. And then I finished it and I felt really empty. That's the best way I could describe it. And being honest, I just felt really empty about the whole thing. I had a great experience with this game, full of laughs. I got very emotional through a lot of the scenes because it was so nostalgic, and this game really pulls at your heartstrings a lot of the times. I really don't know how to feel when I finished it. I just had this feeling of emptiness, and I was still excited about the prospect of a part 2 because I had such a great time with it, but a lot of the things they did in this game really changed what I thought this game was going to be. And that will scare people off, and that will disappoint people, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people are going to be very angry at Square Enix because of what they've done. That being said, guys, I really, really recommend this game. I had so much fun with this game. It's potentially my game of the year. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out things about everything that I just went through with this game. A lot of different emotions. I don't know if that's enough to put you off, but I still would absolutely recommend playing this game because it's an absolute blast to play the majority of it. It is still an amazing, amazing game. I can't stress that enough. At the end of that, I'm going to give Final Fantasy VII Remake an 8.5 out of 10. I know some of you might be slightly disappointed at that review score, but please, as I said before, bear in mind, this is a really, really good game. Especially for newcomers who have no idea anything about the original. I think they will prefer it a lot more, but they will be confused as well as veteran players. This is not just a veteran player thing. It will kind of confuse new players, but it will be more suited for them, I would say. It's a hard one to really review this game. I still feel a bit weird about reviewing it and not really knowing what to say about it, anything good or anything bad. So hopefully I've done a good enough job. But I've decided I'm going to do a spoiler talk on this because I really need to talk about this game. The good stuff and the bad stuff. Obviously, I'm not just going to talk about the things I didn't like. But if you do want to see that, do subscribe to this channel and you'll see that in a couple of days. Anyway, thank you so much for checking out this review and I will see you next time.